Did ancient Chinese sailors discover Australia centuries before Captain Cook? This question might sound like something out of a historical fantasy, but what if I told you the evidence is hiding in plain sight, inked on a mysterious, centuries-old map? Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most fascinating maritime mysteries. The possibility that the Ming Dynasty's legendary fleets charted the coast of Australia long before any European ship ever sighted its shores. At the heart of this puzzle is the Selden Map, a stunningly detailed chart from the Ming Dynasty, discovered tucked away in Oxford's Bodleian library. Unlike traditional Chinese maps that place China at the center of the world, this one was different. It's a practical seafarer's chart showing trade routes, compass bearings, and coastlines with remarkable accuracy. And when you trace its lines, stretching far south through the Indonesian archipelago, you're left with a tantalizing question. Where did these routes end? Could they have gone further? The conventional story we were all taught is that after the epic voyages of Admiral Zheng in the early 15th century, the Ming Dynasty turned inward, burning its massive treasure fleets and adopting a strict policy of isolation. This Haijin or sea ban supposedly slammed the door on Chinese maritime exploration. But history is rarely that simple. Commercial trade, both legal and illegal, never truly stopped. Chinese merchants, pirates, and fishermen continued to sail the seas, their smaller, more agile junks navigating the treacherous waters of Southeast Asia. And this is where our investigation truly begins. We're not just looking at a single map. We're piecing together a mosaic of evidence. Let's start with the ships themselves. The Ming Dynasty's shipbuilding technology was arguably the most advanced in the world at the time. Zheng's treasure ships were colossal vessels, floating cities that dwarfed anything Europe could produce. But even the more common trading junks were marvels of engineering. They featured watertight compartments, a technology Europe wouldn't adopt for another 400 years, sternpost rudders for superior maneuverability, and sophisticated sail plans that allowed them to sail efficiently against the wind. These ships were built for long, arduous journeys. They were sturdy, reliable, and more than capable of handling the open ocean. So the question isn't whether they could have reached Australia. The question is whether they did. The journey from southern China, through the Strait of Malacca and island hopping through Indonesia, brings you tantalizingly close to Australia's northern tip. For experienced mariners who lived and died by the sea, the currents and stars would have been their guide. Now let's talk navigation. Long before the invention of the GPS, sailors navigated by the stars. Chinese astronomers had meticulously mapped the night sky for centuries. They developed sophisticated star charts and instruments like the armillary sphere to plot their position. By measuring the altitude of Polaris, the North Star, they could determine their latitude. But what happens when you cross the equator and Polaris disappears below the horizon? You have to switch to the southern constellations like the Southern Cross. And guess what? We have Ming-era navigation manuals like the famous Wu Beizi that include detailed charts of the southern sky. This proves that Chinese sailors were not only familiar with the southern hemisphere as stars, but were actively using them for long-distance navigation. They knew how to find their way in waters far from home. The currents of the South China Sea and the Indonesian Thru-Flow naturally guide vessels south. A ship caught in the right current, or a captain with a thirst for discovery, could easily have been pushed towards the unknown southern landmass. Let's go back to the Selden Map. While it doesn't explicitly draw the Australian continent, its detailed depiction of the Spice Islands and its clear, practical routes heading south suggest a deep and intimate knowledge of these waters. Some researchers have pointed to other, more controversial maps, like the Integrated Map of the Great Ming, which appears to show a landmass remarkably similar to Australia. While the authenticity of some of these maps is heavily debated, they add to a growing body of circumstantial evidence. Then there's the archaeological evidence. Across northern Australia, from the Kimberley coast to Arnhem Land, intriguing discoveries have been made. Ancient Chinese ceramics, some dating back to the 15th century, have been unearthed. There are reports of a small, carved soapstone figurine of a Ming Dynasty deity found near Darwin in the 19th century. Indigenous oral histories in northern Australia also speak of visitors from the north, men with pale skin who arrived in large ships long before the Europeans. They tell stories of trade, interaction, and sometimes conflict. Are these just myths, or are they the echoes of real historical encounters? Of course, we have to approach this with a critical eye. A single piece of pottery could have arrived through complex, indirect trade networks. A statue could have been dropped by a later collector. But when you start to connect the dots, the advanced shipbuilding, the sophisticated celestial navigation, the practical sea charts, the archaeological finds, and the indigenous oral traditions, a compelling picture begins to emerge. It's a picture that challenges the established narrative of Australian discovery. The idea that the Ming Dynasty cess sea ban was a complete and total shutdown of maritime activity is a simplification. The imperial court may have turned its back on the sea, but the people who lived along China's vast coastline did not. Merchants sought profit, fishermen sought their catch, and explorers, driven by that timeless human curiosity, sought the unknown. For these sailors, the world wasn't a static map hanging on a palace wall. It was a dynamic, ever-expanding network of winds, currents, and stars. Think about it, from the perspective of a Chinese junk captain in Timor, the next landmass to the South Australia was closer than many of the ports they regularly visited back in China. With favorable monsoon winds, the journey would have been entirely feasible. It is almost more unlikely to think they did and see it than to think they did. So did Zheng himself set foot on Australian soil? Probably not. His official voyages had specific diplomatic and strategic goals, and they don't seem to have extended that far south. But did other, unnamed, unrecorded Chinese mariners of that era, traders, fishermen, adventurers, make landfall on Australia's shores? The evidence strongly suggests it's a real possibility. This isn't about rewriting history to diminish Captain Cook's voyage. His journey was a pivotal moment in world history, one that permanently linked Australia to the European world. But history is not a zero-sum game. Recognizing the potential for earlier contact doesn't erase later events. It enriches our understanding of the past. It shows us that the world was far more interconnected, far earlier than we often imagine. The story of discovery is never about a single person or a single moment. It's a long, overlapping story of many peoples and many journeys. The ink on the Selden Map is more than just a guide to ancient trade routes. It's a clue pointing us towards a hidden history of maritime exploration that we are only just beginning to piece together. The ocean holds its secrets well, but with every new discovery, every re-examined map, and every story passed down through generations, those secrets are slowly coming to the surface. The question of who first discovered Australia is complex, but one thing is becoming clear. The Europeans were likely not the first to arrive. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical detective journey. What do you think? Could the Ming Dynasty have reached Australia? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the forgotten corners of history. See you next time.